should be able to see the release notes for 16.9, which came out a couple of weeks ago now. It was my birthday, and then I was on holiday, and then accidentally wound up in hospital, so would not recommend that. Instead, play around with Visual Studio. So the one big thing is the address sanitizer support. So we've been working a lot on address sanitizer for Windows. This is not... We've had support in Visual Studio for running ASAN on Linux for a while, but now this is actually like running ASAN on Windows applications, which is kind of cool. So it's now out of experimental and into general availability, which means we're pretty happy with the implementation, and we've solved some of the major issues which were cropping up. Another thing is OpenMP. So people have been asking for more OpenMP support for quite a while. We are working on it. Like, it's taking some time, but so the idea isn't that LLVM will be taking over OpenMP. The idea is we'll be using LLVM's runtime. So you're still using MSVC, but we're using LLVM's OpenMP runtime in order to add new features. Thanks for the follow, I'll pass by. So right now you can now target the LLVM OpenMP runtime from MSVC. It adds just a couple new features, last private clause, which I might get to show later, and unsigned index variables for loops. But we will be adding more as we go towards like more OpenMP4 features and the kind of stuff that people have been asking for a while. It's currently just for x64. Other bits and pieces like remote Windows development for CMake, Hey Random Forest, and we like to try and keep up to date with things like Ninja and CMake. So Ninja's up to 1.10, CMake to 3.19. I think we have LLVM down here somewhere. Yeah, LLVM and Clang. We've been shipping those for a while, but those are now updated to version 11. And I linked to the release notes for Clang and LLVM and CMake and Ninja, so you can go and have a look to see what they have. CMake 3.19, I think, has JSON support. Like, you can now read JSON files from CMake, which I think is kind of cool. We've had for a while, our standard library has been on GitHub, and we're carrying on adding new features, so you can go and keep track of all the pull requests and issues here. This one's no discard for various constructors. I think this was like guards and things like that. But you can keep track of all the STL stuff right here. One thing which is really good for Address Sanitizer is it used to be like you would have to pass all of the runtime libraries for ASAN to the linker, and it depends on if you're using a debug build or release build, or if you're using x86 or x64, and they all have weird names and you need to find them. So that was a pain. But now if you're doing ASAN with the command line, you just pass sanitize address and it all works, which is much better. This was like one of the key things which was holding us back from saying that our ASAN implementation was generally available, because it's a horrible experience if you have to supply these things by yourself. One thing is, if you're doing like embedded Android development, you can now, if you have a toolchain file, which you probably should if you're doing embedded, it just makes things so much easier for CMake. It'll now use those variables to configure IntelliSense. And then a few more bits and pieces. I'll definitely show some module stuff. Maybe we'll show some abbreviated function templates, since I like those. But I'm going to start up a new project, and we'll just play around with some of these new features. And if you have anything which you want me to show, or if you have any questions or anything really, then just let me know and we can play around. As I said, this is the first time I'm doing something like this, so what we do here is broadly up to you. I think the first thing which we can try, this is just a normal setup for a console application in Visual Studio. So the main things I want to show some modules, and I want to show some ASAN, and I want to show some OpenMP. So maybe we can start with ASAN. So why don't we, since we're going to make modules later, why don't we make a new source file? We'll just add a new item. For now, we'll add a header file, and just call it stream. And we'll have a single function called getResult, which for now we'll just make return 42. And then in our stream.cpp, we can spell it properly. Stream.h, and now we should get IntelliSense, and we'll be able to say get, there we go, result. All right, now we go ahead and build this. Hopefully this builds and runs and prints 42. If it didn't, then I've done something horribly wrong. Let me know if this font size is okay. I tried to make everything big enough. Good afternoon, Dr. Frankenstein. There we go, 42. Okay, so we've got a basic program which is prints 42. Let's try and get it to break with ASAN. Let's see, I'll do it on 6x64. And right, so we're currently returning 42. Let's say instead we have a global array, and that's going to be our result, and it'll just be an array of a single element called 42. Let's just return that, and that should work. Assuming that I actually hit F5. My idea here is I'm just gonna do an out of bounds read to trigger address sanitizer. So this should run and print 42. Things are probably running a little bit slowly because I'm doing all of this from, it's because it's loading a bunch of symbols. It's probably communicating with like symbol servers and things like that. So once it does this once, then it should be fine for the rest of the stream. But while it's doing that, I'll go and talk a bit about address sanitizer more broadly. So address sanitizer, if you want more information, go and have a look at the Clang documentation. Hey, Presumptuous Commoner. There's all the information about address sanitizer is here. It's been available on Linux for ages. The Windows support we came out with, I think about, time is fake now. It could be a year ago, it could be 2 years. I literally can't remember anymore. It was around the last time CBPCon ran, which I guess is 2 years ago now. But yeah, it's a memory error detector. So there's address sanitizer and memory sanitizer, and those two are different things. Memory sanitizer is primarily for like uninitialized data, whereas address sanitizer is for things like out of bounds errors, use after free, use after return. And it's got experimental support for memory leaks. I don't know if we've got that in MSBC yet, but we definitely have things like this, out of bounds access. So that's what I'm going to try and trigger right now. So this, did it run and finish? Let's rerun it. Should run pretty much instantly. There we go, 42. Okay, that worked. Now what happens if we try and do an out of bounds read? Is this gonna... I haven't enabled ASAN yet, so I'm just seeing what this does by default. Build succeeded. It just read some random memory which happened to be initialized to -1. Okay, so like this is a bug, right? This is undefined behavior. We're reading something out of bounds, but it's working. It's not breaking. So let's go ahead and enable address sanitizer. So address sanitizer support is enabled through, I think, is it the general? Yep. So if you go into the property pages, I'm using MS Build because we're going to be doing modules later. You can do this through CMake. as well, and there's instructions in our documentation online for it. But for now, for MS Build, I just switch this to yes, and that's going to enable Address Sanitizer. Now, I'm currently in debug mode. Address Sanitizer is incompatible with a few flags, which are set by default in debug mode. So if I build this, this will probably fail. Oh, this succeeded. Why did that succeed? I guess, did I already unset those things? Okay, well, we'll see what this does. That does not seem to have done Address Sanitizer. Oh, it's because I was setting the configuration for release, but I'm in debug mode. That explains everything. Okay, so now if I try to build, then this will probably fail. Why did it succeed? Am I doing this? Am I setting the X? Yes, I'm setting the X86 version. You'd really think I'd be better at this by now. Like... Okay, X64 debug. Yes, that is what we're setting. Now it should fail. There we go. Yeah, oh no, it works. Why does it work? Okay, so we have this documented on our documentation. Like if you check out the Address Sanitizer MSVC, if you just type this into Google, we've got like a blog post which tells you all the information which you might want to know about the general availability, and then it also links right at the bottom to the main documentation. So there's all the information you would want to know here, but it's also in the information here. So I got a nice compiler error which said it's incompatible with this option, and I can change that from the project settings. I can never remember which place anything is. I just remember what the options are called and type them in here. But this is the one which is asking for edit and continue support isn't available when Address Sanitizer is enabled. So I can go and apply that. And then I think incremental linking as well is not supported. There we go. Incremental linking. So I need to go turn that off. I could have turned these off before, but I'm just showing you, like, you know, if you try this stuff out by yourself, then you'll get those errors if you are trying to build in debug mode. So you can just go ahead and follow the instructions which the compiler gives you, and it should all work. Build started. There we go. Succeeded. Cool. All right, so now the question is, do we get an ASAN error or not? So I'm hoping that we get a little break because an exception is thrown by ASAN. There we go. So we got a global buffer overflow, failed to use and restart external symbolizer. That's because it's just doing some more loading. This should... There we go. Alright, we got an exception thrown. Not only does it tell us that we got a global buffer overflow, it also tells us where we did it. And if we go and have a look at the output, this gives us, if you've used ASAN before, this is what you are probably used to seeing. You get like a call stack, you get a bit more information about the location, and then it shows you what the state of memory was around about the global overflow, and then it gives you even more information. So this is so helpful if you're trying to debug things like, when we built without ASAN, it just worked. It returned -1. If it was doing that in production, that would not be good because something could be corrupted, anything could be happening. Whereas if we're running with ASAN, which is usually about, I think they say on their website, about 2x, yeah, around 2x slowdown. So if you run all of your tests and things like that with ASAN, then you can get your information like this in order to then try and work out where your memory issues are. So this is super helpful. I think that's all I want to show from ASAN in here, but if anyone has any questions about it, I can for sure look at some other bits and pieces. Like I said, our documentation's all here. So this is the kinds of things which are supported by ASAN, and a bunch more information about how to install it. You need to make sure that you're ticking this ASAN box, what I believe is set by default if you are installing from scratch. But if you have an existing installation of Visual Studio, then you'll need to make sure you tick this, and then it tells you how to set it up from Visual Studio and from CMake if you're not using AMS Build, things like that. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, I've not really played around with ASAN much on Windows. I used it a bunch on Linux, but this seems to work pretty well. Thanks for the follow, Anucap. Yes. So with Open Folder Project, then if you're using CMake, then I believe there's a where is it? Yep. So you can just set this address sanitizer enabled property in your CMake settings.json, and then that will do everything for you, which is a fairly decent experience, I think. I haven't tried it in a while, but it was pretty much similar to what you saw here. Like you enable it and then you build and run something and you get an exception thrown. Cool. So I'll go ahead and disable ASAN because I don't want more slowdown when I'm running the stream in Visual Studio from my Surface laptop. I go ahead and switch this back to what it was, which was just return 42. And then we can modularize this. We can try and make this a module. CMake specific. Other build tools in Open Folder, like what build systems are you using? Like Nmake, or if you're using other build tools, then you can set the sanitize address compiler option yourself, and that should work. Build 2. Yeah. If you're using build 2, I haven't tried it, but yeah, if you just try and pass fsanitize equals address, then fingers crossed it all works. If you try it and you find it doesn't work, please let me know, because we would definitely like to make sure it is working. Alright, so let's try and make this a module. Typically, I do my module stuff by, you go to create new item, and then you can actually create a module interface unit from here. I'm going to be brave and try and see what happens if I just straight up go and rename this to stream.ixx. What happens? So when we're creating a module, if you're not familiar with C++ modules, the way you introduce one is you say export module, and we'll just call this mymod. So what this does is declares that this is a module, that this code belongs to a module called mymod, and then export says, and we want to make this module visible. Now currently we have red squiggles because modules are only available in C++20, and by default MSVC compiles for MS Build compiles for C++14. So we need to switch to C++ latest. We will be introducing a C++20 flag once we are feature complete for C++20. So we still got a few things to go, like std format support and a bit of ranges. We're like mostly there on ranges. Once all of the features are there, like of course there's going to be bugs and things like that, but once all the features are there, then we're going to get a C++20 flag. If you want to keep up to date on std format, like I said, STL issues, search for format, and there's going to be something in here. I don't know which is the right one, but one of these issues is going to be tracking our support for format. So CXX20 is the flag. Probably one of... How do you do tags in GitHub search? I can never remember how to do this. But this is where we track everything. So whatever the paper number for std format is, you can probably just search that and you'll find it. But I know we're working on format right now, so it will be not too long. I'm not going to promise a time frame, but yeah. All right, so if we go ahead and enable C++20, then those squiggles go away, and now we've got a module. So I just changed the name from .h to .ixx, and it does seem to be working, which is nice. I'm going to stick this inside a namespace, because, you know, we like namespaces. We do not like polluting the global namespace. C# users feel privileged having format from the start, yeah. Cout and IO streams are just not the most pleasant things to work with. Now, if we go ahead here, I'm gonna have to get rid of that, and import, what do we call it, mymod, then hopefully, yeah, this has worked out that this is a module, so that's good. IntelliSense is now working for this as well, so if I go ahead and control click on it, then I get teleported to my export declaration, which is kind of nice. So I changed getResult to TL getResult, but this will still not work, thanks to follow Glaze. This will still not work. Oh, it looks like IntelliSense is finding it. I wonder what happens if I build here, because I didn't export the function. There we go. So interestingly, I get IntelliSense even though this is not exported. I think I'm gonna have to talk to the engineers about that. That seems like a bug. I know we're still working a bit on modules IntelliSense. It's not 100% there, so this is probably something which is the visibility thing is probably still something which needs worked on. But yeah, if I build this, then it says cannot find module even. Is that just because I didn't export anything from that module? Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and export this function, because one of the things about C++20 modules, you know, the build times are the thing which people talk about the most, but visibility is what I think is one of the best things about modules. It just lets you control which of your symbols are actually visible outside of your module, and you're not going to accidentally leak any additional macros or definitions. No one's going to be getting into your like detail namespaces and things like that as long as you don't export them. It's just it's a lot nicer than any facilities that we have right now for managing visibility of symbols. Yeah, and you don't need to use any macros, which is nice. So I'm a little bit worried. Yeah, this is not finding my module. I'm not sure if do I just have to rebuild? Like I said, when I'm making modules, I tend to like create a new file, and that tends to be I'm gonna try that right now. Just make a new one. Call it module. I'm just gonna steal all the contents from here and see if this works. Because it's interesting that IntelliSense was working, but okay, this seems to be working now. It's compiling the module, compiling the stream. So it's obviously something that I needed to do to get this thing registered with the build system to say that this is a module interface definition. Whereas when I created this right off the bat, that got registered. So there's something that I'm missing, or there's a problem there. But anyway, this worked, so I can now, in theory, go ahead and control click on that, and I get to my definition inside my module. So it says module names are global, or can you combine it with the directory name? That's yeah, a point of contention. Generally, it's like Random Forest says, you use dots. So if I have like my mod, then I could have my mod dot, I don't know, results or something like that. Yeah, maybe some properties thing which needs flipped here. Oh, that would do it. Let's try that. Go back to put everything in stream.ixx, flip the file property to a oops, was there a module in here? Maybe just C++ compiler. Will that make it work? Alright, I'll see what this is set to, I guess. That's set to C++ compiler. So let's try this. That worked. Yeah. Good idea, Bob Vodka. Yeah, so that's it. If you have something which was a header and you want to switch it to a module interface, then just make sure that you flip the item type from the C++ header to the C++ compiler, and then the build system will pick it up. And this is the reason I'm using MS Build instead of CMake for this, because like you could drive all of the module stuff from CMake or anything else yourself. Like there's the compiler switches to do that, and the compiler switches we do have documentation for, but you need to write a lot of your own like CMake custom targets and things like that to get all the building and dependencies and stuff worked out. So right now, if you're doing modules with MSVC, use MS Build unless you want a lot of pain. Of course, we want CMake to be as good an experience as using MS Build. So we're working with the people at Kitware who make CMake in order to get it as good as possible. But for now, MS Build is going to give you a much better experience for modules. VS could detect the rename and switch the property automatically. I think that would be a nice thing to do, especially because I didn't immediately think I need to switch the property. So it might be a common thing if you're trying to modularize some code and finding that it's not picked up by the build system. Might just be a nice experience thing to flip it automatically. Cool, so that's modules. Does anyone have any questions about modules or the MSVC support? I'm certainly not an expert in modules. I know the one thing actually to make sure of, which I find really confuses people and is not obvious at all, is say we want to do some logging here, right? Which modules features are still missing? I believe we're feature complete on modules, so all of the stuff which is in C++20 modules is in MSVC. So if you want to like hash include IOStream here, say we wanted to log what we were gonna return or something ridiculous like that, This is bad because if you include something in here, you're saying that the code in IOStreams belongs to my module, and that's going to give you a load of linker pain. I don't know what will happen here. I think it will blow up because I'm including IOStream here, and I'm including IOStream in my CPP, and this one says, yeah, there we go. Like, ambiguous call to overloaded function, delete plain internal. You're gonna get weird, not a linker error in this case, it's a compiler error, but like this is not clear at all. We need to do a bit of work in the compiler diagnostics. If you want to hash include things, yeah, I know the error message is not ideal. If you want to include things which are not modules, like if you did an import std core here, which is I think where our IOStreams stuff is currently, that would work. I can't remember what this is going to be called when standard library modules are introduced. That will all work because it's in the module world and it's all nice. But if you want to include something which is not modularized, you have to put it up here, and you have to say module semicolon. So what this does is says, okay, this is in the global module fragment, which basically means that this does not belong to a specific module like MyMod. This is in the global module. So if you want to hash include something, you're getting weird compiler errors, we will fix that. If we don't fix that, I'm going to be shouting at people because, yeah, it's not a nice error message. That's something to keep in mind. Make sure that if you are exporting a module and you're including stuff, include it in the global module fragment. All right, cool. Hey, thanks for the subscription run, Forrest. Right, next, I guess we could do some OpenMP stuff. So, let's say we're going to initialize the result to 0, and we can do some OpenMP magic. So, if we do OpenMP, we could use parallel sections here. I think this is the syntax. OMP, parallel sections. How do you say how many threads is an OpenMP thread count? Or is it number threads? The compiler will probably shout at me. It's pragma. OpenMP. So I want to do parallel sections because there's something which is supported in the LLVM backend, which is not supported in the default MSVC one, but only for parallel sections. So parallel sections, I'm going to have to look up what this one is here. OpenMP parallel sections thread count. Does anyone know? Num threads. There we go. Num threads 2. Alright, so this basically says that we're going to have a bunch of sections in this block, and we're going to use 2 threads, and these sections can be done in parallel and distributed among these threads. So if we then say, pragma OpenMP section, then this declares a new section. So we could say something like, we'll output our ID. So here we're going to have to include something up here. Include the OpenMP header. OpenMP. Where's my IntelliSense? Give me IntelliSense. There we go. Get thread num. This will give us our thread ID, which will either be 0 or 1 because we're spawning 2 threads. And then we can say that our ID for section 0 is ID. And we'll assign our ID to a result. Then I'll do exactly the same thing again, except call this section 1. So now these are 2 parallel OpenMP sections. So it could be that they'll both be ran on thread 0 if the scheduler just decides to run them sequentially. Could be that one will be run on thread 0 and thread 1, or thread 1 and thread 1. And they could also be run in, it could be that we get this code actually being run before this code, or some interleaving. So these can be run in parallel. They might get scheduled sequentially. So if we build and run this code, it'll probably take a while because it's going to try and pull in all of the symbols for OpenMP and things like that. Maybe you should have switched that to release. Yeah, here we go, loading all those symbols. But basically this could be, we could see 0, 0, 0, or we could see 0, 1, 0, or 0, 1, 1 here. So in this case, they all got scheduled sequentially, which is the least interesting option. I'm hoping that, and again, hoping that if I run it a bunch of times, then they'll eventually get, and maybe if I run this in release mode, maybe get a better chance. So I'm just hoping that I can get, oh, I'm gonna have to flip my properties again because I switched. No. So of course I was just setting my configuration for debug mode. So if I set here C++ latest for release mode, I'm gonna have to also turn on OpenMP. It would, actually that would probably explain why we're just seeing it running sequentially, because I haven't actually enabled OpenMP yet. So the pragmas were just getting completely ignored, and the code was just running sequentially. Again, cannot remember where OpenMP is, but if I just type OpenMP. So this is using the default runtime, not the LLVM runtime. So now if I build this, yeah, ignoring the pragmas is a feature. Okay, let's see what this does. This will now, I guess, load some different symbols, so the first time will take a little bit longer. Fine, I have coffee. I actually ran out of my, I get coffee delivered every week. Oh, there we go. We got thread 0 running, and we got thread 1 running, and result was assigned to 1. So now one thing which is supported in the LLVM runtime, which is not supported in the MSVC runtime, although it does not give you an error, is because, again, the pragmas are a feature, but I wish it would warn you. It's private. So if you say private result, what this means is these threads are going to get their own copy of result. So even if thread 1 ran last and assigned 1 to result, this is the thread's own copy of result, so it won't actually get returned. So what I'm hoping is we'll see 0, 1, 0. Not in this case. 0, 0, 0. They got scheduled sequentially. Come on, 0, 1, 0. Nope. This time. Let's try 2 more times. If I don't get it, then just believe me that it could happen. No. Oh. Yeah, the point is that these when we say that result is private, then more threads. I'm gonna try 6 threads, see what happens. Come on, scheduler, you can do it. Do we believe in the scheduler? No, we don't. Okay, just believe me. We would end up with 0 as the result anyway, because they're local copies per thread. And if you say last private, then that means that the threads are getting their own copy of result, but the last thread which gets assigned the last section is going to copy the result back into the variable itself. So if this ran on thread 6, for example, then we would see 6 back here because it's the last parallel section. But this is not supported in the MSVC backend. It really should warn here. Maybe if I turned my warnings up a little bit, then it would warn me. I'm still not getting these threads scheduled, these OpenMP sections scheduled on different threads, which is... Oh, there we go. This one got scheduled on thread 1, and we did get the result back out, which is surprising because I thought this wasn't supported on the MSVC backend, but maybe it just happens to be working. But anyway, if you want to use the LLVM backend, then it's currently experimental, which is why we do not have an option here. But if you supply as an additional option OpenMP LLVM, then that will use the LLVM runtime instead of the default one. And now I wonder what this will do. Wonder if we'll end up with a number higher than 1, because we did say to go and use 6 threads, but ooh dear. I got an internal compiler error, yay! I don't know what I did to... Yeah, I win. Where's this coming from? An internal compiler error in... something to do with the debug information? In building image. Jeez. Let's try debug mode and see what happens. I'm gonna have to file this one. Guess I'm doing some weird stuff using numthreads last private. I did say that the LLVM backend was experimental, so I covered myself slightly. Oh, there we go. It worked in debug mode, but I didn't set the LLVM backend. I wonder if the LLVM backend is gonna work here. I don't know if you can hear Marshmallow meowing directly outside my door, but he is very much interested in being let in and coming to say hi. I'll go ahead and disable the normal... Oh, that's already there. So if I run this, I'll go get Marshmallow to say hi. Hey, Marshy. Here's Marshmallow. Marshmallow says, compilers should not have internal compiler errors, should they? No. Okay, so this time we actually got some interleaving, and we got a result out as one. So things are happening. These are being scheduled on different threads. They're interleaving. But the last private thing is working out. What do you think of OpenMP, Marshmallow? I don't think he has many opinions on OpenMP, which is legit since he is literally a cat. So yeah, that's OpenMP. The LLVM backend is now in experimental support, and we'll be adding more OpenMP4 features in the next few releases. So I know we've had like some developer community tickets open for quite a long time on OpenMP4. People have been asking for it for a long time. We are now working on those features, and we'll be targeting the LLVM backend. All right. Does anyone have any questions about OpenMP stuff? I can find something else to demo. I guess I could show some of the abbreviated function templates. I like those a lot. Yes. Do you like them too? So abbreviated function templates. I haven't tried doing abbreviated function templates with modules. So the idea is, say you have something like template class T void, I don't know, let's just call it copy, which just returns what it got in. Then, you have to say that this is a template, you have to give this type a name. If we have a lambda, then in C++ 14 you can just say like auto t return t. You can just say auto, and that will be reduced. That will be deduced to the type which you pass in. Yes, Marshmallow, I hear you. You are heard. Okay. He is the noisiest cat I have ever met. You can come up and sit on my lap if you want. No? So we had this in C++ 14, but you couldn't do anything similar with normal templates. We then did add the ability to do the opposite, like in lambdas. I can't remember where the brackets go. Is it in here? Can you say, or is it before? Is it like template T? It looks awful, but you can do this. I think maybe these go after, but no, because you're introducing the name here. But anyway, you can explicitly declare names for templates, and that's useful in some areas. But in C++ 20, then you can do like a generic lambda, but for a template function. It just looks like that. And I'm going to see if this is going to work across a module boundary. So we're exporting a template here using the what's here? Explicit type is missing. Doesn't look promising. We'll see what happens. Just gonna say TL copy, TL get result, and see if I get compiler error. Might be that IntelliSense is giving me an error, but it will compile. Oh, right. Yes, sorry. My bad. We need to make the return type auto. Now the error goes away. Brick build. Yay, succeeded. Okay. And this should just give us 0. Yeah. Cool. So that worked. Additionally, since we have concept support now, I don't think I've tried this, but you can, if you hash include concepts, then we should have a bunch of concepts available. Now you could do something like template class T, and then requires that stood integral. That's concept, right? T. Is that a thing? Do we have stood integral? Unrecognizable template declaration definition. gonna remove export there and see if this works. Can we see how you do modules and dynamic libraries? Yes, I can show that. I'll finish off doing this and then Marshmallow, stop trying to. Marshmallow's currently trying to eat some wrapping paper. Copy is not a member of TL because we did not. Oh, I need to put the export here. That's the problem. And this all working. There we go. Cool. So yeah, we have feature complete support for C++ 20 templates in MSVC now. So you could say T requires the T is integral like that. Alternatively, you could say std integral here, which is for concepts which are just dependent on a template parameter. It's a lot more terse, and that works as well. Or the final option is to get rid of this entirely and say, I can't remember which way this goes, but I think it's this. It's either that or it's std integral auto. Failed. There we go. Std integral auto T. Marshmallow, stop eating. That comes out of my lap, okay? So that's compiling and working. So the reason why we need auto in here is because say there was an auto. Is this function a template or not? You could only tell by working out if this was a concept or a type, which means you would have to look at the definition. The IDE could help here. Like, this tells you that std integral is a concept, but still, like, it's not clear if this is a template or not by looking at the signature, unless you do something like this, decorating with auto. Not really familiar with C++20 modules, but I suppose it will allow me to stop having to put template code up in a header. Your template still needs to be visible in order to be instantiated. Alright, so like if you instantiate your template manually and have all the instantiations visible, then to link against, that's fine. But your definition for your template still needs to be visible so that other code can instantiate it. Alright, so let's try and do modules with dynamic libraries. So how could we do this? We could get rid of this file. We could then copy all of this stuff and create a new project. Or I guess I can just create in this solution. Oops. So I'm going to create a new project. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to create a static library. And I'll just call it stream. Or we already called that. We'll call it streamlib. Right, your templates can all be in your IEXX. You don't need to have like separate headers in order to store your templates. Alright, so this is now my my static library. Oh, we wanted a dynamic library, didn't we? Let's do that instead. Dynamic library, dynamic link library. Streamed in. Okay, so we now have dynamic library, and I'm gonna put my stream code inside it. I've not played around with this at all, and pretty much everything I've done with dynamic libraries is Linux. So my Windows dynamic library knowledge is pretty lacking. But I'm gonna go ahead and just create my module in here, and enable C++20 in projects. Oops, language, which gets me, oh whoops, that's standard library modules. Oh, here we go. Yeah, if you want to play around with the experimental standard library modules, you can enable that here. Okay, that should make these compiler errors go away. Oh, I'm gonna disable precompiled headers for now. Yeah. Alright, so now our module is inside a dynamic library. I'm gonna get rid of this file. And see if this still works. So now we're building our module as part of a dynamic library. You can see it's getting built here. And then this is not finding my mod. So I have tried doing this with a static library. Like if you have a static library which you link against and have a module in there, I have had that working, and it did find the module and link and work properly. Oh, I got internal compiler error. Did I? Or was that an old error, actually? And try clean rebuild. When in doubt, clean rebuild, see what happens. Alright, that's still failing. So that's... Seems like it's compiling things in the wrong order, right? No, I did not add it to references. That would do it. So now hopefully it builds in the right order. No, it did not. I'm gonna try again. Clean rebuild. Because you saw like the... Okay, now streamdin is building... So it's building stream.ixx and streamlib and DLL main. And now it's building stream. So that is building the dependencies in the right order. I'm not seeing where's the internal error in here. So yeah, I'm not sure what we have to do to make this work. It's not finding the module. I guess, do we have to copy something across? So let's try, if instead of having this in the dynamic library, Let's see what happens if we add it to the static library instead, and then add that to the references and see if that works. Because I know I have had that working before. Like I said, I've not played around with Windows dynamic libraries much. Yeah, that's not working either. So yeah, I know it is possible to do modules across library boundaries and have it all work with the build system. I'm not sure what's making it not work here, but I have had it working before. Maybe I'll play around with that a bit more off stream sometime and see if I can get it working. But for now, I think I'll show you some VC package stuff. Let me just remove this from the references. Alright, so say I'll just do a build here to make sure it works. Marshmallow is now very calmly sitting on my lap like a little sphinx. So VC package, if you're not familiar, is on GitHub at Microsoft / get away, VC package. So it's all on GitHub. You can pull it down. It's reasonably easy to get started. You just clone it, you run a bootstrapper which builds the tool, and then you can install any packages. Hey, thanks for joining. All of the packages which are available are in this ports directory, of which there's 1,617. They're not all available for all platforms. Like a VC package runs on Mac, Windows, Linux. You can use it to cross-compile. It supports a bunch of different things. But these are all the packages which you can build and install. So one thing which has come recently is manifest files and versioning. So previously you would do something like if you wanted to install a package, then you would do VC package install, and that would install into some VC package specific directory, and then you could either have like a single VC package installation for your system, or much better is having one per project which you're working on, because that lets you keep all of the dependencies isolated from each other, which is good. But one thing which people kept asking for is like having something like cargo from Rust, where you can declaratively state what your dependencies are and what the minimum versions are. So now VC package has something like that. So I can go ahead and enable it like this. Go to VC package and use VC package manifest. Flip that to yes, and now it's going to look for a manifest file, which is just a JSON file. So I can go and create a JSON file. And I'm going to go and copy one from the blog post. Versioning. So we recently, just last month, almost exactly a month ago, put out this blog post on taking control of your VC package dependencies, which tells you all about versioning. The first thing you have to do is set VC package feature flags, either in your your environment, your user environment, or when you're invoking VC package. I already set it up in my environment, so this is already done. And I'm just going to steal this thing. So what this is you have the name of your project, you can also call it stream, your version, any dependencies you have, and then you have this built-in baseline. Now this is a SHA commit of the VC package repo, which says here's the baseline of where we're building from, the reason for that is because VC package tests all of its dependencies against each other at a given commit. So if you have a given commit of VC package, then you can be fairly sure that all of the versions of the dependencies at that version are good together. So if you make sure that your baseline is good, then you've got a better chance your dependencies working together. So I'm just going to go ahead and steal the latest baseline. Oops. And this is that stream. And it's just called VC package.json. And I think the latest format is patch 1. So if I then go ahead and build this, hopefully I now see, so the VC package manifest was disabled, but we found a manifest file. Did I enable the wrong configuration? Debug x64, use package manifest, yes. It's gonna try and make it work anyway. Okay, so now it's detecting compiler hash for x64, so this is running VC package. This compiler hashing runs a little bit slow for me. I'm talking to the engineers, seeing what's up with that. Okay, so this is now, it seemed that we want format lib, and it's now building the package, and it's gonna install it somewhere aside for me, which is very nice of it. And once that's done building, then just automatically we should be able to, we're using std_cout here, but we should be able to say include format / format.h. It'll get IntelliSense once this is built and installed, but it will all just work by default. We won't have to do any additional configuration to use this. If you're using CMake inside Visual Studio, that will all work as well. If you're using CMake from outside of Visual Studio, you need to specify a toolchain file for CMake, which will then pull in any VC package dependencies. This is all, again, documented in the VC package repo, and also at docs.microsoft. In here, this tells you all about installing it, getting integration. This is what I was talking about. If you're using Visual Studio, then you can just run integrate install and everything will work without you having to supply locations or anything like that. Bye, Marshmallow. This looks like it's still building and installing, which is frustrating because I tried this earlier and it wasn't running this slow. Probably just because I'm running my stream and encoder and Visual Studio and trying to install libraries all at the same time. But if you're running this on your machine, hopefully it runs a bit faster. But this is the basic idea. You have your VC package .json file, and you can commit this to your Git repo, and then everyone can use this and have the dependencies installed by default. If you want to learn more about the syntax, like we've got version greater than equal to and things like that, like it's a little bit weird because of JSON, but this is what we have currently. But if you read this blog post, then it tells you all the different things which you can have. Like if your project is using semantic versioning or a date or just arbitrary strings, and tells you how to use it for CMake. This is that toolchain file which I mentioned if you're not using Visual Studio. And there's also pinning older versions. So I mentioned about that baseline. Oops, where did it go? That baseline, which is the SHA commit of the VC package repo. If you want to use versions older than what's in the baseline for some reason, then you can override it there. And this is kind of a visualization of that. Like, your baseline is all of these packages have been tested against each other, and then you could constrain to some packages which were versions above that, or you could override in order to select versions which are older than the baseline. So constraints for newer packages overrides for older versions. Yeah, so there's all the information there, and hopefully this is now finished. Yay! Where was my? Here we go. Did I get IntelliSense? Come on. Come on, come on. There we go. Huh. Okay, I guess this is because it seemed to think that I wasn't using manifest files for some reason, which I'm not sure why. Because I am using them there. This is debug, this is x64. This is set. I'm just going to go ahead and remove these dynamic and static libraries and rebuild. Installing package dependencies. There we go. So this is where it's going to install. So this is kind of like if you've used npm, then this is like your node modules folder. VC package installed. So it's going to build the package. It's going to install it to an isolated directory. So that if you have, we're seeing that we need version, where was it? 7.1.3 of format. But if you have some other project on your system which is using an older baseline, and has an older version of the ports directory or anything like that, then your build in here is not going to interfere with that. You're not going to get any weird versioning dependency hell things. Okay, so it used a cached version of format there, which is nice because it already built it. So it already built it using the same compiler, using the same version. So it just pulled the build directory from somewhere else, which is kind of nice. And now hopefully, if I say hash include, no, still not getting. This was literally working earlier today. I don't know what's going on. Streamed in, can't open. Oh, I know. This is using, it's because I've been copying these files all over the place, I think. This is actually, yeah, this is in the dynamic library folder still. I'm just gonna, I should have used the proper ways of moving these files around. Instead, I tried to take shortcuts and screwed up. So I'm just gonna add that module again here. Now it should hopefully work. Cancel that build. Just check if this... There we go. Okay, yeah, it's because the file was in the old like dynamic library thing, which I tried and failed to get working. So, format.h, there we go. So now instead of cout here, for example, I could use, what's it called? Format. And like this. Oops. and that should build and work and do everything. It's asking me to save that file. I don't want to save that file. I did bad things with my files, and I am sorry, but it's fixed now. Okay, so it's doing that compiler hashing again. Again, I want this thing to speed up. The versioning support is still pretty new, so we're working out kinks and things like that. This is probably one of them. I messaged the engineers earlier today to see if this can get sped up. But hopefully this will all build and we'll get our format. We're still using our LVM OpenMP. We're using C++20 modules. Missing type specifier. Where's that? Oh. There. Just had some garbage kicking about at the top of my file there. Detecting compiler hash again. Drink some more coffee. I got like 5 bags of coffee delivered for my birthday from my grandparents. It's a lot of coffee to work through. Like, you usually get through about a bag a week, but having 5 bags, which are all newly roasted, and you're probably not going to get through all of them by the time they're still good enough. So I'm drinking a lot of coffee right now. There we go. That didn't quite print what I expected, but we're pretty much fueled by coffee, yes. But yeah, so that's working with VC package, OpenMP, C++20 concepts. We showed ASAN. We showed the what's it called? Abbreviated function templates, constrained auto. Was there anything new in other new stuff in 16.9 which I missed? ASAN, OpenMP, targeting remote windows. I didn't want to set that up. If you do have Windows, like this includes ARM64. So if you are like running Windows on ARM64, then you can check that out. I'll upload this stream to YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it on Twitch as well. So if you missed the VC package bit, you can go back and watch it. I showed some IntelliSense stuff with modules. Oh, this is one thing. Completion for make unique and make shared. It used to be that if you ran include memory. See, we're in here and we did std make unique. Say we wanted to make a unique std string for some reason. Previously you used to just get, like a forwarding templates and things like that, but now you actually get the correct constructor for std string, because this is forwarding through the constructor of std string, and it's such a common pattern that we now support this. Oh yeah, that'll be it. Std format returns a string. You need to do like format print. That's it. That's why I wasn't printing out the what I expected. Yeah, so that will work. I can prove it to you, but it's not very interesting. But yeah, so we now have IntelliSense for constructors for make unique and make shared, in place and in place back, which is just one of those nice usability things. Connection manager supports ECDSA for private keys now. I think that's all that I really want to get through. I could demo some of the more context-spur containers, which allows you to do compile time new, but I haven't played around with it a whole lot, so I would probably get things wrong. My understanding is that this, you basically need to make sure that the pointers never actually exit where you're creating them from. So there's a lot of constraints on what you can do with it, but it does work in some ways. And I think it does give you decent compiler errors if you do something wrong. Like, let's try it out, and if we fail, then we fail. Export, const export, mess around. So let's say I do const export auto I equals new int return I. Is that going to return 0? Like, that should... Oh. We get expression must have a constant value, invalid use of interpreter storage. Is that what error I'll get if I try and build this? Like I said, I played around with this like 6 months ago or something, but I haven't tried recently, and I can't remember all of the rules for this off the top of my head. And this compiler hash thing is gonna not be fun. Gonna disable the manifest for now. Okay, and rebuild. Hopefully this still picks up the built version of formatlib, which we had. Alright, what did we get? Expression did not evaluate to a constant. Failure was caused by allocated storage not being deallocated. There we go. So we allocated this storage, but we didn't free it up in here, and you can't do that in a compile time context. So you could do something like IC equals this, and then delete I, and then return IC. This should work, in theory, I think. Allocated storage not being deallocated. Unexpected token. Return. Have I got janky syntax somewhere? I'm going to just take this const expr off. Does that work? Explicit return type missing. Unexpected 19. Oh, is this just... Oh, this is because I had some code kicking around which I should have deleted. My bad. Try this again. Did I just ice the compiler? Yeah, ice the compiler. Sorry, not yet implemented. Okay, so that doesn't quite work yet. Like I said, I have tried this before with... I can't remember what was working, but obviously there's some parts of this compile time new expressions which are not quite there yet. But anyway, yeah, that's all I wanted to demo. Did anyone have any other things they were interested in seeing about 16.9? I'm gonna sit here and drink my coffee. Like I said, I'll probably do another similar stream either next week or in a couple of weeks. So if there's anything you'd like to see, like of new C++ features or just things that you'd like to know more about, I can do that. I might play around with coroutines next time, because coroutines are really cool. Especially I've been playing around with coroutines and C++ WinRT, which is a really, really nice match. Like if you're doing WinUI, you can use coroutines for doing all of the UI stuff and like switching between threads inside a function and things like that. It's a really cool model. So I might play around with that next week. Not seeing anything else in chat, so yeah, thanks very much for joining, everyone. This was fun and a learning experience, and proof that if you do not test things, then sometimes you get an internal compiler error if you're playing around with new compiler stuff. So thanks for joining, everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.